Hello everyone, Jules here. Today I'd like to talk about two books that influenced Aleister Crowley, and they are two books that influenced his ideas for his Thoth deck, some of the cards in the Thoth deck, and the Golden Dawn as well. And one of the books in particular is mentioned in Crowley's Book of Thoth, and in particular in regard to the Fool card. So the first book I want to talk about is a classic, and it's called The Golden Bough by James Frazer. And this is an absolute classic book. I read this book many years ago on the beginning of my spiritual path. Actually did not know at that time that this book had been quite an influence on Aleister Crowley. James Frazer was one of the first anthropologists, and he particularly studied mythology and pagan rites and ancient tree worship. So this book is really quite fascinating. I really like this particular version. This is a later version. This is not the one that I read many years ago, but I really like this particular version because it's an abridged version and it's all in one book. This book was first written in 1890, and James Frazer was a contemporary of Arthur Waite. When this book was first written, it caused a lot of controversy because there weren't very many authors, or there wasn't anyone writing about pagan rites and tree worship in particular, the ancient rites of tree worship and the ancient gods. And then after the initial book, the first book came out, it was actually then written over several volumes over a period of time, and this is why this is the abridged version. This is about 860 pages, and it's divided into different parts, and I will talk about that. I've just written some notes, so I'll have to read my own notes here. So there was a 12-volume edition, and there's also an illustrated edition as well. I did have an illustrated edition many years ago, and I have mislaid that edition since then, but that doesn't matter. I'm quite happy with this abridged version. So in the years 1906 to 1915, there were 12 volumes written of the Golden Bough. And the abridged version that I just showed first became available in 1922. So just to talk about the different parts of this book and how this influenced Crowley. In book 1, that is all about King of the Wood, which is about the divine king concept. Book 2 is about, or part 2, is about the killing of the god, which is all about the sacrificial god. And that is particularly the concept of the hanged man. So this card is very much about the sacrificial god. And the divine king idea is also linked with the Egyptian god Osiris, who was the dying and rising god, and Dionysus, and the corn spirit, and the tree spirit. So all of these concepts are discussed in this book. And the god Dionysus, or Dionysus, is very much linked with the Fool card. That's why the Fool is coloured in the green for the Rite of Spring, the Rite of Spring ancient festival. And there's grapes here. So this is also to do with the dying and rising god that is sacrificed at the rites of spring. And Crowley writes quite a lot about the Fool card in particular, and that is why he writes so much about the Fool card in his book of Thoth. The other card that very much is to do with this sacrificial ritual is the Hierophant card. And this card in the Thoth deck is really about the Babylonian high priest. Even though the Hierophant word and the Hierophant concept comes from the ancient Greeks, it's actually older than that. It goes back to the Babylonian customs. And that's another reason why this card has the bull on here, because there were bull sacrifices, ancient bull sacrifices as well, in honour of the divine king sacrifice ritual. And that is also why this card is linked with Taurus the bull astrology sign with the golden dawn. So this card ties in with the sacrificial rituals in honour of the divine king. Book 3, or part 3, is about the scapegoat. And I think we all know about that scapegoat, very, very old concept. And that is to do with the Saturnalia festival. So all of these things are in this book. It's a really fascinating book. And then part 4, or book 4, is about the Golden Bough. And it's about the god Boulder and the soul and death and resurrection. So this is a really great book if you're interested in getting it. This particular version is quite accessible. It's got notes, it's annotated on the pages. There are notes at the back of the book as well, and there is an index. So it's a really great book. I'm not surprised that it influenced Crowley at all. It's a wonderful book. The Golden Bough by James Frazer. I'm just checking my notes again before I start talking about the second book that I want to show. Okay, it might be time to start talking about the second book that I have here. And the second book might surprise people in regard to it being a book that influenced Crowley. That is the Masonic Bible. Here is a copy of the Masonic Bible. And you can tell that this is a Masonic Bible from the symbol in the middle here. And this is the compass and the square. This is the symbol of the Masons. And the G in the middle represents God and geometry, because the concept of the divine is seen as the divine architect of the universe. So, particular books of the Bible that influenced Crowley are the book of Ezekiel from the Old Testament and the book of Revelation from the New Testament. Also the book of Psalms from the Old Testament as well. And he does mention the book of Revelation in the book of Thoth, and he mentions particular symbols from the book of Revelation. And also the book of Ezekiel is very much linked with the chariot card. There is a chariot, the chariot of God, in the book of Ezekiel. So the chariot concept links in with the book of Ezekiel. And this card also links in with the book of Revelation, because it has the 4 creatures, the 4 cherubs here that pull the chariot. And these symbols are mentioned in the book of Thoth for the chariot card. And these are wheels of fire, which is why they are red. That all comes from the book of Ezekiel as well. And these books from the Bible, the book of Ezekiel, the book of Revelation, also influenced the Golden Dawn, which in turn influenced Crowley. The founders of the Golden Dawn, the 3 main founders of the Golden Dawn, were Masons. And not that all Masons are associated with secret societies. They are not. That's like saying that all witches are Wiccans. But some Masons were associated with esoteric or secret societies. And the 3 founders of the Golden Dawn did happen to be Masons. And I have Masons in my family as well. My grandfather was a Mason, and so were my uncles. And going back to the book of Revelation again, the 4 cherubs are also shown here in the corners of the card as well. The 4 creatures or 4 cherubs are in the corner, in each of the corners of the universe card. So the universe card ties in with the book of Revelation quite a lot. Crowley had a very profound vision that influenced his design of the universe card. And the concepts of the universe card are sort of tied in with his vision and the book of Revelation. the symbols from the Book of Revelation. And the 4 cherubs are here again as well in the corner, the 4 corners of this card for the Hierophant as well. You can see the same creatures. And they are all the sign of the bull, Taurus the bull, Leo the lion, Aquarius, and the eagle of Scorpio up here. And one other card that I should mention too, I should actually get this other card, that's also very much tied in with the Book of Revelation. I'll just get this other card as well that I think people will probably recognise as well from the Book of Revelation. Of course, which is the Lust card. This is the so-called whore of Babylon riding the lion. This comes from the Book of Revelation, and the lion has several heads or many heads there. So when you realise how much these symbols on these cards are very much taken from or inspired by the Book of Revelation, the Book of Ezekiel, and in Crowley's magical practice, even the Psalms from the Old Testament. So these are 2 books that influenced Crowley and his thinking and his concepts and his practice quite a lot. So that is why I wanted to talk about these 2 books today, because I think quite a lot of people aren't aware of these 2 particular books that did influence Crowley. And I'm just going to check my notes one more time to make sure I've covered all the things I want to talk about. Yes, that seems to be everything. Okay, well, I'll put some details below the video about these 2 books for anyone who is interested in looking into these 2 books any further. So thanks for watching. Bye for now.